Imagine, if you will, a single tool. It fits right on the tip of your finger, maybe the size of a thimble, but it's basically the Swiss Army knife of the entire cosmos.
It's a huge premise. And usually when you see tech like this in fiction,
Yeah.
it's all mechanical. It's, it's Iron Man suit, it's nuts and bolts and reactors. This is something else.
Huge doesn't even begin to cover it. I mean, we're talking about something that protects you from any physical harm, like it literally absorbs bullets. It heals diseases in an instant. It connects you to a universal internet with zero lag.
And it lets you fly.
And, oh yeah, it lets you fly. But you're right, the mechanism isn't just gears and circuits.
No. And that's really where today's deep dive gets so fascinating. We are looking at The Gift, Book 1, by Ray Curry. Because this, it sounds like sci-fi, but the source material grounds it in a very deep spiritual lineage. It's arguing that the ultimate technology isn't hardware, it's consciousness.
Right. And before we get to the aliens and, the superpowers, we have to talk about the author, Ray Curry. This doesn't feel like just some random story he made up. It feels really personal.
Oh, very much so. The whole narrative is framed by his own background. Ray comes from a family of spiritualists from the West Bank. His father, Costa, is this pivotal figure in the beginning. He started out a complete skeptic, a man of science, of math. But he becomes a believer after this profound healing experience.
Was that the thing with the red handprint on his forehead?
That's the one. A physical mark that just appeared during a healing session. It's a pretty good way to convince a skeptic, And then his brother, Zahir, was a trance medium. So the protagonist in the book, also named Ray, is coming from this line. But when we meet him, he's not some guru on a mountain. He's just a regular guy in Arizona.
He's got a printing job. He's dealing with traffic, worrying about bills. He's basically us.
Until he's not. And that's the mission of this deep dive, really, to track Ray's journey from just a normal guy to the bearer of this S.H.I.E.L.D. technology and how he tries to use it to upgrade all of humanity. We have to look at how this book mixes quantum physics with metaphysics to try and solve human suffering.
So let's unpack this. It all kicks off with a classic setup, a family camping trip. Ray, his wife Layla, their kids Nicole and Michael, they're out at Joshua Tree National Park. Beautiful scenery, marshmallows, the whole deal.
It's the calm before the storm. Ray wanders off to get some firewood, and that is when reality just shifts. He describes feeling this tug from above. But it's not violent or scary like in a lot of abduction stories. It's more like a magnetic pull.
And he blacks out. Now, for Ray, it feels like maybe a few minutes have passed. He wakes up, grabs the wood, walks back to the campsite, and he's expecting to see dinner getting ready.
But instead, he finds a park ranger. His wife is hysterical. His kids are crying.
Because of the time dilation, he wasn't gone for a few minutes. He's been missing for 36 hours.
Right, and that's a classic abduction trope, the whole missing time thing.
Yeah.
But the explanation he gets from his memory is, well, it's pretty different. He remembers being on a spacecraft, but not with scary gray aliens doing experiments. He was with the Galactic Federation Council.
The Council of Elders. And they just drop this massive revelation on him. They tell him they've been watching him for eons and that he was chosen specifically because of that genetic lineage we were just talking about.
And that's a crucial point for you to grasp. The book is suggesting that spiritual capacity is almost genetic, that it's hereditary. They tell him Earth is trying to shift into a higher dimension, a realm of love and light, but it's struggling. It needs a catalyst. And Ray is given a gift to be that catalyst. They call it S.H.I.E.L.D.
And because it's always an acronym, let's break it down. S.H.I.E.L.D. is self-sustaining, healing, intelligent, empathetic, luminous defender.
That word empathetic, that's the key. Most shields are just walls. This one feels, and it activates with a simple command. Shield on.
Okay, so he's back. His family is relieved but totally confused, and he starts testing this thing. And this is where it gets really fun for the tech geeks listening. This isn't magic. It's described as technology.
It is. It shows up as this blue light, like a second skin, that maps right to his DNA. It's an advanced AI, and the feature list is, well, it's extensive.
It's just absurdly cool. First thing, protection. He actually gets his daughter, Nicole, to punch him in the stomach.
Which is a parenting choice I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But in the story, it works. The shield just absorbs the impact. But it's more than a physical barrier. It connects to something the book calls source Wi-Fi.
Source Wi-Fi. I mean, that sounds like a marketing name for a really good router. What exactly is it?
The book describes it as the electromagnetic essence of the cosmos. So think about it like this. Our internet relies on towers and cables. It moves data physically. Source Wi-Fi taps directly into the universal field of consciousness. There's no physical infrastructure, no data caps. and the speed is literally infinite.
And Ray's son, Michael, he figures this out right away. He connects the shield to his PC gaming rig.
Yeah, he just bypasses their internet provider completely. Zero lag. Direct mental interface. He starts dominating these online games because he's plugged into the universe's main server. It's such a relatable way to show how advanced this is. He's using a cosmic supercomputer to play, I don't know, Fortnite.
But Ray has bigger plans than getting high scores. He finds out the shield can manipulate matter. There's this great scene where he's stuck in traffic. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
And he just wraps the shield around his car,
And flies right over the freeway.
startling a flock of geese as he does it.
I love that little detail. The AI actually tells him off later. It says the geese were displeased that he disrupted their formation. It gives the AI so much personality. It's not just some tool. It has a voice. It's like a really soothing customer service agent who's also your bodyguard.
A bodyguard that can levitate a pallet of paper. We have to talk about the incident at his printing job. This is the moment he goes from guy with the cool gadget to, well, savior.
Right, the pallet incident. His coworker is about to be crushed by thousands of pounds of falling paper. Ray just shouts, "Shield on," and the AI, it manipulates the frequency of the paper and just levitates it back onto the forklift.
And that's the turning point. Ray realizes he can't just keep this for himself. He's sitting on something that could change everything. So he does what any good American would do. He pivots. He quits his job to go into the superhero business.
More like the distribution business. And this is where the story veers away from the usual superhero stuff. Superman doesn't franchise his powers, right? But Ray does. He figures out how to store this AI energy in little aluminum alloy containers, about 1.5 inches in diameter.
And he sells them for $100, which for godlike power seems like a pretty good deal. I mean, a new video game costs almost that much.
It's a very accessible price.
Yeah.
But he hits a classic startup problem. How do you convince people this little blue light in a box is real? You can't just run an ad saying, "Become a god for $99.
So you have to go viral. But not with a dance video. Ray films himself taking a sharp knife and just slicing his own arm open.
It's a graphic demo.
His wife Layla is behind the camera just screaming, which is a very real reaction. But Ray just calmly says, "Shield, heal me." And this blue light stitches the wound together instantly. No scar, nothing.
And that video just opens the floodgates. Orders pour in. But all that visibility, it brings danger. Which leads to one of the most important scenes in the book, the robbery. Because this scene sets up the whole ethical framework of the S.H.I.E.L.D.
It felt like a scene from a movie. Ray's at a gas station buying lottery tickets, and he walks in on a robbery. The gunman, a guy named Eric, is not messing around.
He's desperate. He says to Ray, "Life's hard and then you die." It's this really nihilistic worldview. It's the exact kind of despair Ray wants to cure.
Ray tries to talk him down, tells him there's a better way, but Eric he shoots him, point blank.
And this is the ultimate test. The S.H.I.E.L.D. absorbs the bullet. Ray says it felt like nothing more than mild indigestion.
Can you imagine? You shoot someone and they just sort of burp. It would completely shatter your reality.
It shifts the power instantly. But what Ray does next is the really important part. He doesn't attack Eric. He doesn't use the S.H.I.E.L.D. to throw him through a wall, which he could have done. He offers him a job. He tells Eric the S.H.I.E.L.D. can help him turn his life around.
Which brings us to the big ethical problem, doesn't it? If you're selling superpowers for $100, what stops someone like Eric from just using it to rob banks more efficiently? How do you stop this gift from being weaponized?
Exactly. And this is where the book introduces the tier system. It's a fascinating idea. It's essentially gamifying morality. Ray realizes he needs to stop the low-frequency virus, that's his name for greed and selfishness, from corrupting the S.H.I.E.L.D.
So not everyone gets the full suite of powers right away. You have to earn them. It's like a video game where you level up, but the XP is just being a good person.
Correct. It's all based on a trustworthiness score, which the AI calculates from your vibrational frequency. It scans your intentions, your history, your emotions.
Okay, so let's run through these levels because the powers you get at each stage say a lot about what the author thinks is important. Level 1 is the starting point for people with some issues.
Level 1 is for anyone from 0 to 33% trustworthiness. They get the basics. You're protected from harm. You can heal yourself. You get the S.H.I.E.L.D. phone. But the most interesting feature is something called the veil of perception.
That's the one where you can see and hear spirits, right? That seems pretty advanced for level 1.
You'd think so, but the logic here is therapeutic. The whole point is to resolve grief. By connecting with loved ones who've passed on, people can find closure. It's rehabilitation through connection. heal your trauma, you raise your vibration. The book suggests that a lot of bad behavior just comes from unresolved pain.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you're a decent person or you work on yourself, you hit level 2.
That's 34 to 67% trustworthy. Now you get flight up to the speed of sound, you get invisibility, levitation, and a feature called Whispers of the Earth.
The Dr. Dolittle feature. You can talk to animals in nature.
It's designed to foster empathy. If you can hear the trees and talk to the squirrels, you're a lot less likely to harm the planet. It basically forces you to care about the environment by making its suffering impossible to ignore.
And then finally, level 3, the platinum tier. The one everyone wants.
68 to 100% trustworthy. This unlocks teleportation, which is called cosmic passage, X-ray vision, deep sea exploration, and a universal translator for alien languages.
But there are safety features on the teleportation, right? You can't just teleport into a bank vault.
Or into a solid wall.
Mm.
The S.H.I.E.L.D. uses quantum entanglement to scan the destination first. If it's dangerous or if your intent is malicious, the transport is just denied. It's a smart system that enforces its own morality.
You know, it's interesting that the ultimate power in this world is just the ability to go anywhere and understand anyone. It's all about freedom and connection, not about dominance.
That's a great point. The highest tier isn't a weapon, it's a bridge. It assumes that the most trustworthy people are the ones who want to explore and understand, not conquer.
So Ray's got the tech, he's got the distribution, he's got the safety protocols. Now he just has to scale it up. He launches the S.H.I.E.L.D. healing project.
And this is the grand finale of his mission in Book 1. He sets a date, August 12th, his mother's birthday, for a globally synchronized meditation.
The visual is incredible. Millions of users holding hands either for real or just virtually, creating a literal ring of light around the entire planet.
And they direct all that energy into Gaia, into the Earth itself. The book treats the planet as a living being that's sick, and the results are immediate. Ray describes the skies clearing, colors getting more vivid. It's a planetary restoration.
And the Galactic Federation even chimes in during the meditation to confirm it worked. They say Earth has altered its course to one of legend.
It's a huge validation. But what makes it feel real are the individual success stories that start coming in. It's not just about saving the planet. It's about changing people's lives. And the book gives us very clear examples.
Like Dr. Norman Bradshaw, the surgeon.
Right. He uses the S.H.I.E.L.D. to teleport a heart transplant patient to Michigan in an instant. Just think about the logistics of that today. The helicopters, ambulances, traffic, all of it becomes obsolete. A logistical nightmare becomes a snap of the fingers.
And there's Eva Lindgren, the teacher. She uses S.H.I.E.L.D. to mentally guide her students. She can actually feel when they're getting stuck on a math problem and help them through the interface.
That one is fascinating. It changes what teaching is. It's not just about transferring information, it's about transferring understanding. The teacher literally feels the student's confusion from the inside out.
And on a more personal level, you have the couple, James and Melinda. S.H.I.E.L.D. cures Melinda's breast cancer, which is obviously huge. But James says the shared empathy, being able to truly feel each other's emotions, it healed their marriage.
It's the ultimate couples therapy. It's pretty hard to hold a grudge when you can literally feel your partner's pain.
Exactly. It forces a level of honesty that just dissolves conflict. It suggests most human problems come from a simple lack of understanding. If we could feel what others feel, war, or even just a nasty argument would become almost impossible.
It makes a powerful case for radical empathy as a form of technology, not just a soft skill.
So Ray has healed the sick, he's fixed the planet, he's revolutionized travel, he's sitting there with his family, feeling pretty good. Business is good, the world is literally glowing.
And that's exactly when the cliffhanger hits.
So the notification, just a little ding.
The President of the United States is calling.
I mean, talk about a mic drop moment. We don't know what the president wants, but you can bet it's going to complicate things. Governments tend to have strong opinions about citizens who can fly, teleport, and ignore national borders.
It raises the stakes so much for the next part of the story. It shows that even though Ray may have won the spiritual battle, the political one is just getting started. The government is realizing it's lost its monopoly on power.
So when you look at this whole story, from Joshua Tree to the global healing, what are we really looking at? It's such a specific mix of ideas.
It is. It's a hybrid. It's high-tech sci-fi and high-concept spirituality all rolled into one. On one side, you have AI, quantum entanglement, nanotech. On the other, you've got vibrational frequencies, soul healing, Gaia.
It's like Star Trek meets The Secret.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But it pushes it a step further. It's saying that advanced technology and spiritual evolution aren't opposites. They actually converge. The shield requires you to be a good person to use its best features. It solves the mad scientist problem by making ethics a prerequisite for power.
Which brings us to the big question for you, listening at home.
Yeah, this really is an important thought experiment for all of us.
If S.H.I.E.L.D. was real, if you could order that little aluminum box for $100 right now, where would you land on that tier system?
It's a tough question. We all want to think we'd be level 3. We all think we're trustworthy. But if some AI analyzed every thought, every secret resentment, every selfish impulse, would you really get the power to teleport? Or would you be stuck at level 1, forced to deal with your own ghosts?
And to take that one step further, would a system like that actually cure evil? Or, like you said, with the low-frequency virus, would it just drive that darkness further underground?
If you take away the ability to do physical harm, does the malice just vanish? Or does it find a new way to express itself? Ray believes in redemption, but free will means some people might just choose to reject the light, even when it's offered in a superhero suit. And that's the core tension, isn't it? Can technology force us to be good?
That is a lot to chew on. From Joshua Tree to the White House, Raid Curry's The Gift definitely takes us on a ride.
A ride that can fly at the speed of sound.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Check your vibration, keep your shield up, and we will catch you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. I want to start today with a question that has really bothered historians, sociologists, and honestly just about anyone watching the news. Why is conflict so incredibly sticky?
Sticky is a good word for it.
Right. You look at certain regions or these long-standing feuds, and you see the exact same patterns of violence just playing out over and over for decades, sometimes centuries.
The technology changes, the weapons get more advanced. You go from swords to muskets to rockets, but the core anger.
The anger, it stays exactly the same.
It feels like the definition of insanity, doesn't it? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And usually when we analyze this, we look at all the material causes.
Sure, it's about water rights or it's about oil or borders or, deep theological disagreements.
Exactly, the standard materialist view of history. Party A wants what Party B has. It's a resource conflict.
But what if that model is fundamentally incomplete? What if we've been trying to fix a software bug by constantly just changing out the hardware?
That's the question on the table today.
Today's deep dive is going to challenge a lot of assumptions about how the world works, and I mean, really challenge them. We're looking at a stack of documents involving Ambassador Ray Salome of the United Nations and the accelerating rollout of S.H.I.E.L.D. technology.
And if you're thinking this is just a tech review, like a new phone or something, you are in for a surprise.
A very big surprise. Because if you look at the source material we have, the schematics, the diplomatic cables, the field notes from just this 1 week, a very different and much, much stranger picture starts to emerge.
We aren't just looking at personal body armor here. What we're seeing is the convergence of high-tech hardware with, for lack of a better term, high-level metaphysics.
So S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't just protecting bodies.
The evidence suggests it's doing a lot more. It's mapping the afterlife, and it's proposing that these sticky conflicts you mentioned might actually be fueled by, well, by an invisible external force.
Okay, so when you say invisible force, my skepticism radar usually starts pinging pretty hard.
As it should, but the documentation here is surprisingly concrete. This isn't coming from, some obscure blog.
Right. We have internal UN reports on a telepathy system they're calling the Hive. We have technical specs for something called a projectile glove, which sounds intense.
We have diplomatic transcripts from an intervention in the West Bank that reads more like an exorcism than a peace treaty.
And on top of all that, we have this document. A metaphysical map of what they're calling the cycle of human creation. It's a chaotic mix, for sure. But our mission today is to try and find the synthesis in all of this.
That's the goal, to understand how a belt-clip gadget and a map of the afterlife are being used to try and solve problems that centuries of traditional diplomacy have failed at.
So let's ground this whole thing before we get into, the ghost stories. Let's start with the user experience. Because amidst all this global upheaval, the sources give us a really intimate look at the domestic side of S.H.I.E.L.D. through Ray's wife, Layla. And honestly, this anecdote fascinated me because of how mundane it started. It's the peanut butter incident.
Frockles. It is. It's a perfect slice-of-life moment. Layla realizes she's out of peanut butter, and the notes are very specific, smooth, no hydrogenated oils.
The important kind.
The important kind. And instead of hopping in the car, fighting traffic, finding a parking spot, she decides to fly.
Just casually. I think I'll fly to the store today. What struck me wasn't even the flight itself. We know S.H.I.E.L.D. can do that, but the total lack of ceremony around it.
That's the adaptation rate in action. We see this with every single major tech leap. First, it's seen as magic, then it's a luxury for the rich, and finally, it's just a utility, like turning on a light switch.
And the source notes that she just has to think of the destination to initiate liftoff. There's no complex interface, no joystick she has to learn.
The user interface is her own mind. She's soaring over the freeway, and the notes say she feels a little bit of fear because, she's human and she's flying hundreds of feet in the air. But mostly she's just focused on the errand. It shows you how quickly the superhuman can just become human.
It's the new normal. But the errand doesn't stay boring for very long. She lands, gets a cart, goes into the store. And while she's shopping, she witnesses a purse snatching.
Yeah.
A man grabs an older woman's bag and just bolts for the door.
Now, in the pre-S.H.I.E.L.D. world, this is where it ends for most people. You might yell, you call 911, you wait 20 minutes, and you file a report that probably goes nowhere.
The system is too slow.
But Layla is equipped. She decides to intervene, and she engages the S.H.I.E.L.D. speed function.
And the specs on this are pretty incredible.
They are. The footnotes here say this function can hit up to 100 miles per hour, so she essentially becomes a blur. She catches up to him instantly. But this is where the story pivots from a simple superhero moment to a really complex legal and ethical case study.
Because the robber panics. He sees this woman moving at an impossible speed towards him. He isn't looking where he's going. He runs into traffic.
And he gets hit by a car.
And the witness reports say it's brutal. He's thrown 6 feet in the air, lands hard on his head and shoulders. This isn't a dust yourself off kind of accident. This is major trauma.
It's a critical moment for the technology's public perception. The driver is hysterical, a crowd is gathering. Does S.H.I.E.L.D. get blamed for this? But Layla transitions instantly. She goes from enforcer to healer in a split second.
The police arrive, and this part really jumped out at me. They don't question her. They don't ask for a medical license or anything.
One of the officers just asks, "You've got the S.H.I.E.L.D. healing light, right?"
Which suggests that S.H.I.E.L.D. is already being integrated into emergency response protocols, even if it's just informally. On the street, the cops know what this thing can do.
Exactly. And the device itself, it talks, it acts as a triage nurse, it scans the man and lists the damage out loud. A broken neck, a broken collarbone, severe shock, and then it asks Layla for confirmation to proceed with the healing.
S.H.I.E.L.D., please heal this man. That's the command she gives.
Yeah.
And the repair is, well, it's instant. The man just stands up, completely confused, surrounded by this blue light.
And this is where we get a really good look at the safety rails of the system, because this guy, he realizes he's glowing, he realizes his neck isn't broken anymore, and his first instinct is not gratitude.
Not at all. It's opportunism.
Or just pure panic, fight or flight. He realizes he is enveloped in this incredible power, and he tries to use it to escape from the police. He tries to jump, to activate the flight mechanism to get away.
But S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't a passive tool, is it? It's not like a gun or a car. You can't just hotwire it.
No, it has agency. There's an AI there, and it warns him specifically. It says, S.H.I.E.L.D. will shut down if you continue your attempts to evade capture. It's giving him a clear choice.
A choice he ignores. He tries to run for it.
And the system just freezes him mid-stride. Immobilized is the word the report uses.
That is a fascinating precedent. We talk about smart guns that only fire for their registered owner, but this is something else. This is a moral weapon.
I think that's right. It enforces a kind of social contract. It grants you these godlike powers, flight, healing, super speed, but it revokes them the very moment you try to use them against the law.
It creates a system of what? Enforced accountability. It solves the supervillain problem that's inherent in giving people superpowers.
You can be Superman, but only if you follow the rules. If you break them, you're just a guy in handcuffs, which is exactly how that robber ended up. The ultimate carrot and stick.
So while Layla is out there beta testing the morality protocols in a grocery store parking lot, Ray's dealing with the much less glamorous side of things, the supply chain.
The logistics, the unsexy backbone of any revolution.
Right. The sources mention a meeting with a Mr. Perry about some hardware updates. It seems they're moving away from the original box design.
Yeah, you can have the best tech in the world, but if it's awkward to carry, nobody's going to use it. So they're shifting to a much sleeker belt clip design they're calling a compartment. But the source details this little hiccup that I think is really telling about the design process.
The thumb issue.
The thumb issue. The initial 3D printed prototype had an opening that was too small. A standard male thumb couldn't fit into the compartment to grab the S.H.I.E.L.D. light unit.
So you have this device that can heal a broken neck, but you can't get it out of the holster.
Exactly. They had to widen the opening to 3/4 of an inch. It sounds so trivial, but it shows you they're still in that iterative hardware phase,
Oh, yeah.
and they have a massive inventory problem.
100,000 units of the old box model.
Just sitting in a warehouse, and they have to offload them before they can start mass producing the new built clips. It's a good reminder that even a world-changing technology is still subject to, basic warehouse economics.
They can't just magic the old inventory away. But there was another piece of hardware mentioned in these documents that felt a lot less consumer goods and a lot more tactical: the projectile glove.
This is a fascinating development from their innovations department, run by a guy named Nicholas. The standard shield has a pretty significant limitation range.
Right, you have to be close, within about 6 feet to pass the protection to someone else.
So if you see someone being attacked across the street, you can't help them unless you can physically get over there. The glove solves that problem.
How does it actually work? Is it like
Yeah.
shooting a laser beam of protection at them?
Not light, but matter. The schematics describe it as a flexible, high-strength polymer glove that generates a ball of shield energy. But, and this is the key innovation, to make that energy ball fly through the air and stay cohesive so it doesn't just dissipate like steam, they infuse it with biodegradable nanoparticles.
Nanoparticles. So you can essentially throw a force field grenade
Yeah.
at someone to protect them from a distance.
Precisely. It turns protection into a projectile. It completely changes the tactical geometry of a crisis. You don't have to put yourself in the line of fire to save someone anymore. You can cover them from a safe distance.
That feels like a game changer for police, for soldiers, for first responders.
A massive one. And that leads us to the organizational side of this. While the hardware is getting smaller and its range is getting longer, the network itself is expanding. Ray calls it the hive.
This is the UN implementation, right?
It is. Ray introduces the concept of telepathic communication to Annette Moreau, who's the head of the communications department. And we need to be really clear about what telepathy means in this context. It's not about hearing spooky voices in your head.
No, the source material is very specific. Ray calls it productive hive cooperation.
Which is something the UN desperately needs, to put it mildly, considering how many different languages and bureaucracies are usually clashing with each other.
Tell me about it.
The source describes it as instant coordination without the friction of language. It allows a team on the ground to move as a single organism, sharing intent, data, and strategy instantly and silently.
And they're pairing this with a global analytics dashboard.
Yeah, a 3D hologram of Earth that shows real-time shield usage density. It's a heat map of adoption.
And I noticed a real disparity in the data they pulled up in that meeting. Iran is climbing pretty fast. They're at 5 to 10% usage already. But Israel is stagnating. It's stuck at around 3%.
And that data is actionable intelligence. It's not just a vanity metric. It tells Ray where the diplomatic bottlenecks are. Why is Israel lagging? Is it cultural resistance? Is it a political decision? It lets him know where to focus his energy.
And Annette Moreau, she sees the potential immediately.
Instantly. She's the one who proposes using S.H.I.E.L.D. as a global 9/11 system. If everyone is connected to the hive, a distress signal is instantaneous. There's no dialing, no waiting for an operator. It could be the ultimate planetary safety net.
But to understand why Ray is pushing all of this so hard and why he genuinely believes this tech can solve these ancient, sticky conflicts, we have to leave the hardware behind entirely. We have to look at what he calls the software update for the human soul.
And this brings us to the document labeled The Cycle of Human Creation.
This is where things get really, really strange.
This is the heaviest lift of the episode and maybe of this entire deep dive series. Ray goes to see Johanna Jonsdottir at the Department of Spiritual Awareness and Phenomena, and he gives her and her team what he calls a download.
A download of universal source knowledge.
It's a literal transfer of information that maps out the entire geography of the afterlife.
And when you say geography, it implies a place, like a map you can unfold. But the sources seem to suggest it's more about frequency, vibration.
That's a much better way to put it. Ray explains that humans are a triad: mind, spirit, and body. When the body fails, the spirit persists. But way it goes, what channel it tunes into, to use our radio analogy from before, depends entirely on its vibrational frequency. He outlines 7 distinct levels.
Okay, let's walk through these because the implications for how we're supposed to live our lives now are pretty significant. Level 1 is called the shadow.
Traditionally, I think we'd call this hell, but the description is psychological, not fire and brimstone. It's a
Yeah.
place of extremely low vibration. It's inhabited by souls who were consumed by greed or hate or rage in their lives. It's also where victims of suicide initially go. The key phrase the source uses here is lost in a fog.
Lost in a fog. That's a specific image. It's not about punishment.
Exactly. It implies they aren't being tortured by devils with pitchforks. They are trapped in their own confusion, their own despair, their own negativity. They're in self-imposed comas, completely isolated by the choices they made in life.
That's almost more terrifying, in a way, just being trapped in your own worst headspace for eternity.
It's a feedback loop of misery.
Okay, so then there's level 2, the resting place. This one really surprised me. It's for good people who still have earthly attachments.
You can think of it as the decompression zone. The source says it looks like an idealized version of Earth. Beautiful mountains, lush grass, perfect weather, but it's for people who are still addicted to the physical experience.
What do you mean by addicted?
Things like smoking, overeating, drinking, any strong physical craving. So if you were a good person, you paid your taxes, you were kind to your neighbors, but you just really, really loved your cheeseburgers and your cigarettes. Stop off at level 2 for a while.
Chuckles. So it's a cosmic detox center.
That's a perfect analogy. You have to shed the habits. You have to realize you don't actually need those physical sensations to exist anymore. It's a transition state. You aren't stuck there forever, but you can't move up until you let go of those physical cravings.
That makes sense. Level 3, the givers,
Mm-hmm.
felt like a direct call out to a lot of people I know.
Oh, absolutely. This is the trap of the martyr. It's for souls who spent their entire lives serving others, caregivers, dedicated parents, certain types of leaders, but who completely neglected themselves in the process. Their lesson is to learn self-love before they can ascend.
That's so counterintuitive to a lot of traditional religious teaching, isn't it? We're often taught that total self-sacrifice is the ultimate virtue.
It is. But this framework suggests that balance is the ultimate virtue. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't value your own spirit, if you don't love yourself, you can't fully integrate with the universal source. The lesson is you have to love yourself as much as you love your neighbor. Not instead of, but in addition to.
Okay, now, level 4 is where it gets really sci-fi. Eternal youth and innovation.
This is the cosmic playground. The source says that inhabitants here revert to their physical prime, which apparently about 25 years old for most people.
I'll take it.
Me too. And here they can fly freely. They can manifest objects just by thinking about them. So if you want a castle or a golf course or a high-tech laboratory, you just create it. It's
Yeah.
a place of limitless creativity. But there is a very strict bouncer at the door.
The open mind requirement.
Exactly. The source explicitly states that dogmatic or rigid thinkers cannot enter level 4, even if they were deeply religious or morally good in life.
So if you think you already know all the answers, you can't get in.
You're barred. It's the home of inventors, scientists, artists, philosophers, the eternally curious.
That is a radical idea.
Yeah.
It's saying that curiosity is a higher spiritual virtue than blind obedience or dogmatic certainty. The universe values the question more than the answer.
It aligns with the idea of evolution, doesn't it? You can't evolve if you're rigid. You have to be willing to change your mind to be proven wrong.
So what's after the playground?
Then you get to the higher levels. Level 5 is the pure, or the formless. These are highly evolved souls, the text mentions Einstein as an example, who now serve as spirit guides and sources of inspiration for the living. They begin to lose their distinct physical form and just become beings of light and vibration.
And level 6.
Level 6 is the blueprint. It's described as the divine university. This is where ideas are conceived before they manifest on Earth. So the concepts for new inventions, new philosophies, new art forms, they originate here. The goal is what they call oneness.
And the final level, level 7, is just the source.
Total mastery, complete merging with the universal mind, omnipotence, omniscience, the ability to inhabit any form, an animal, an alien, an element, anywhere across the universe. You become a co-creator of reality.
Wow. And the source also touches on reincarnation, but it reframes it in a really interesting way as soul contracts.
This completely recontextualizes our most difficult relationships. The idea is that families or groups of souls agree to reincarnate together to help each other learn specific lessons.
So that difficult boss you have, or that estranged sibling.
According to this, they might be fulfilling a contract you all signed before you were born. They're playing a role to help you learn about patience or boundaries or forgiveness.
It turns life from a random series of events into a cosmic classroom.
A very challenging classroom, but a classroom nonetheless. It's a compelling framework. But what makes this deep dive so unique is that Ray doesn't just treat this as philosophy or theology. He treats it as mechanics, as a testable hypothesis.
He goes out and field tests it. Which brings us to segment 3, the ghost hunt at Fort McAllister.
This is where theory meets practice in the most direct way possible. Johanna's team from the Department of Spiritual Awareness goes to this Civil War site in Georgia. The reports are pretty standard haunting stuff. A rifle mysteriously falling off a wall, people seeing phantom soldiers charging across the grounds, cold spots.
But they don't bring EMF meters or Ouija boards.
No, they bring S.H.I.E.L.D. And they use it as a kind of telescope to peer into the lower frequencies, the frequencies of level 1 and 2 we just talked about.
They aren't summoning spirits. They're just tuning the radio to their station to see who's still broadcasting.
A perfect way to put it. And almost immediately, they find someone, a Confederate soldier named Chester.
And the tragedy of Chester is that he doesn't know he's dead. He's still on duty. He's asking them about his wife. He's just stuck in this endless loop of standing guard for a war that ended 160 years ago.
This is a direct validation of that level 1 description, lost in a fog. He's trapped in a repetitive cycle of duty and worry, completely unaware that time has moved on.
So how does Johanna handle that? What do you say to someone in that situation?
Very delicately, she acts as a gentle reality check. She tells him the current date. She explains that 160 years have passed.
I can't even imagine hearing that. Sir, you've been standing at this post for a century and a half.
It must be devastating news, but it's also liberating. It's the shock that breaks the loop. Once he begins to accept his state, the portal, what they describe as the light, appears for him. He sees it and he crosses over. He leaves the fog behind.
But Ray, of course, takes it a step further. He doesn't just help one lost soldier.
No, he walks out to the old earthworks and confronts an entire battalion. The report says it's about 100 soldiers, both Union and Confederates, still fighting a phantom battle over and over, and he uses what I'm now calling the logic trap.
It's brilliant. He doesn't chant or use holy water or perform some ancient ritual. He appeals to their memory of physical experience.
He asks them a simple logistical question, a question so mundane it's profound. He says, when was the last time you ate? When was the last time you used the bathroom?
Chuckles. It's such a funny question to ask a ghost, but cuts right through the delusion.
It forces them to confront the physiological impossibility of their existence. You can see the realization dawning on them. Wait a minute, I haven't been hungry in a very long time. I haven't slept. The illusion of the battle just crumbles.
And then he delivers the final piece of information.
He informs them that General Lee surrendered at Appomattox. The war is over. Their watch is done. They've been relieved of duty.
And they cross over en masse. The takeaway here is just profound. Hauntings aren't malicious monsters. They're administrative errors. They're confused people stuck in a glitch in the system.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. is the debug tool. It can facilitate their release. But this all leads us to the ultimate test case. If you can clear a Civil War fort of confused ghosts, can you clear a modern, intractable geopolitical conflict of its ancient hatred?
From Fort McAllister to the West Bank, Ray heads to the Middle East, and the situation there is, as always, incredibly tense. We get a quick recap of the situation in Iran first.
Right. Apparently, the supreme leader there used S.H.I.E.L.D. to stop an attempted coup at the palace. And he didn't do it with force, but by radiating what the source calls diplomacy, calm, and kindness.
Which reportedly helped transition Iran toward a more prosperity-focused model. So Ray wants to try and replicate that success in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
He teleports to Ramallah with his colleague Robert to meet the Palestinian president. The demands are historical and familiar. A complete halt to settlement expansion, the removal of sanctions, and the right of return for displaced families.
But there's a new concession on the table, a big one. The report states that Hamas has agreed, in principle, to recognize Israel's right to exist.
Which is a seismic shift, but it comes with conditions. If all Palestinian prisoners are released and displaced families can return.
A massive if. But still, it's a crack in the wall. It's movement where there has been none for decades. But there's a problem. The Palestinian president says Israel is negotiating in bad faith, claims they're still building new settlements, despite public promises to stop.
This is the classic diplomatic deadlock. He said, she said, accusations with no proof. And this is where the phone a friend moment happens.
Ray, being Ray, doesn't draft a formal inquiry to be sent through channels.
No. He uses S.H.I.E.L.D. to place a call to the president of Israel, right there in the middle of the meeting in Ramallah, and puts him on speaker.
It's radical transparency. It's completely unprecedented. He puts him on the spot in front of his adversary.
And the admission they get is just shocking. The Israeli president admits it's true. Settlers are still building. But he says the government officially ordered a halt. They want peace. But the settlers have rebelled. They're building illegally, and the government is afraid to use its own military or police to stop them.
So they're afraid of using force against their own people.
It's a Frankenstein's monster situation. The government encouraged this movement for decades, and now they've completely lost control of it.
So the diplomatic deadlock isn't really government versus government anymore. It's the Israeli state versus a rogue faction of its own citizens.
And Ray realizes the only way to break the logjam is to go directly to the source of the problem. He has to go and meet with the settlers themselves.
But before he goes, he does a technology transfer. He gives S.H.I.E.L.D. units to the Palestinian cabinet.
It's a critical trust-building exercise. It equalizes the power dynamic. The source says they use the mist, they heal themselves of old aches and pains. It immediately changes the vibe in the room from a tense negotiation to a kind of cooperation.
So Ray, Robert, and the UN team teleport to a community center in a West Bank settlement. And the scene is ugly.
It's a full-blown confrontation. The Israeli prime minister is actually there in person, trying to reason with them, but he's being shouted down by about 140 extremely angry settlers.
And they're chanting, "We will never stop. This is our land."
It's a wall of pure rage. Ray steps in. He tries logic first. He speaks to them in fluent Hebrew. He makes a passionate argument that valuing land, what he calls rocks and dirt, over the lives of human children, is ludicrous. It's irrational.
But logic just bounces right off them.
Completely. You can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. And this is where Ray realizes the problem isn't logical. He uses S.H.I.E.L.D. to scan the room, just like his team did at Fort McAllister.
And what he sees connects everything we've talked about right back to that Civil War fort.
He sees that the hall is not just filled with 140 angry people. It is teeming with thousands of earthbound spirits.
Wow.
Some of them, the source notes, date back to biblical times. Ancient, angry, disembodied souls, and they are clustering around the angriest settlers, whispering into their ears, feeding on the conflict.
This completely reframes the diagnosis of the conflict. It's not just political grievance or historical claim, it's spiritual pollution.
These ancient spirits are like psychic parasites, feeding on the negative energy and goading the living into creating more of it to keep the cycle going.
And it gets even more specific. Ray spots one man in particular, Alexei, who is more than just influenced. He's visibly possessed. His rage is not his own.
This next scene is incredibly intense. Ray and Robert have to physically restrain him. And Ray uses a clever tactic, a Trojan horse. He asks Alexei if he wants his chronic back pain healed.
So he can get permission to use S.H.I.E.L.D. on him.
Exactly. And the moment the S.H.I.E.L.D. energy touches him, the entity inside reacts violently. It screams out loud, "He is mine." This is a full-blown exorcism happening in a community center. Ray commands the spirit to leave in the name of the Holy Spirit.
And the spirit is expelled, a flash of light. But the aftermath of this part was just heartbreaking.
Alexei wakes up, he's dazed, he looks around the room totally confused, and he thinks he's in Poland.
He's lost time. Years, maybe. There's a woman next to him who the crowd says is his fiancée.
Yeah.
But Alexei has no idea who she is.
He doesn't recognize her at all, and the horrific realization dawns on everyone. She was engaged to the spirit that was possessing him, or at least to the personality the spirit had created, not the man himself.
The man she loved is just gone, because he was never really there.
It's an unbelievable tragedy, but it's the shock that wakes the whole room up. The settlers see this happen. They see the angry man they knew as Alexei vanish, replaced by this gentle, confused person. They see with their own eyes the reality of what has been influencing them.
So Ray explains it to the entire crowd. Your anger is being amplified. It's being fueled by these ancient spirits who are trapped here. And then they do a mass healing.
Ray and the team use S.H.I.E.L.D. to create a field that encompasses the whole crowd. They heal their physical pain, arthritis, back pain, you name it. But more importantly, they clear the psychic space. They clear the spirits. Johanna and Ray guide those thousands of ancient spirits into the light, just like they did with the soldiers at the fort.
They clean the room.
They clean the room, and the result is instantaneous.
What happens?
The dark influence is just gone, and the settlers' entire demeanor changes. It's like a fever breaking all at once across 140 people. They look around at each other, confused, as if waking from a long, angry dream. And they agree. They agree to stop the construction. They agree to try for peace. The Prime Minister is just standing there, completely stunned.
It's an absolutely incredible resolution. We started this deep dive with a petty thief stealing a purse in a suburban grocery store.
And we ended it by solving a core component of a geopolitical crisis by, well, removing ancient ghosts from a settlement.
It's a complete synthesis of everything we've discussed: the domestic, the technical, the metaphysical, and the diplomatic. They aren't separate spheres of life. They're all interconnected.
Deeply.
So what does this all mean? When you boil it all down, what's the core insight here from these sources?
I think the core insight is that for centuries, we have been treating the symptoms of human conflict, not the actual cause. We argue about the politics, the borders, the economics, but this source material suggests that the root cause is often spiritual. It's a kind of spiritual pollution, unresolved trauma, ancient grievances, literally hanging around in the atmosphere like smog.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. is presented here as the vacuum cleaner for that pollution.
It's a powerful metaphor, isn't it? It cleans the air so that people can finally think clearly.
It does, and it raises a really provocative question for you, our listeners, to take with you today.
It really does. If these ancient spirits can influence current events, if they can whisper in a settler's ear or a soldier's ear or just amplify the anger in a room, how many of our own angry thoughts are actually ours?
That's a thought that is going to keep me up tonight. When you get angry in traffic, is that really you? Or are you just being used as a battery by something else that feeds on that energy?
And to take it one step further, if S.H.I.E.L.D. is this tool that upgrades the human experience, if it makes us healthier, safer, and spiritually clearer, what happens to the people who refuse to use it? Do we end up with a two-tiered humanity, the enhanced and the legacy humans?
That's a question for another deep dive, I think.
For now, we'll leave you with that. And keep your eyes peeled for the global summit that's mentioned throughout these sources. Something tells me S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't done yet.
Not by a long shot.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay curious.
And stay shielded.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to say, looking at the stack of documents we have for today, I had to take a step back and just breathe for a second.
It's a lot.
It is, because usually we're looking at one specific thing, a new tech trend, a historical event, maybe a political biography. But today we are looking at something that feels like it's trying to rewrite the operating system of reality itself.
It's a massive undertaking. We are analyzing the gift. Book 3, Restoring the Sacred Balance. And you're right, it absolutely refuses to be categorized. It's presented as a factual record, a memoir almost. But the scope is just staggering.
Staggering is the word. I mean, just to give you, the listener, a kind of roadmap for this hour. We are going to start in the middle of a high-stakes geopolitical crisis in Beijing.
We're talking bomb blasts and diplomatic standoffs.
Exactly. Then we're going to pivot to a discussion about macroeconomics and, of all things, a kitchen appliance that could theoretically destroy the global stock market.
A very unassuming kitchen appliance.
Right. And if that wasn't enough, we are going to end up thousands of years in the past, analyzing the fall of a high-tech version of Atlantis.
It sounds disjointed when you list it like that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Like a fever dream.
Mm.
But the mission of this deep dive, really, is to show how these aren't random, isolated events. They're all spokes on the same wheel.
Okay.
And the central narrative follows a diplomat named S.H.I.E.L.D, and his journey really acts as a bridge between our current messy world and this high-concept metaphysical reality.
Right. So it's about the transition of the planet, the transition of human society, and the personal transition of this one character, Ray. He starts as this, diplomat using a piece of high-tech armor called S.H.I.E.L.D. to negotiate treaties. And by the end, he's essentially a cosmic ambassador rediscovering his own ancient past as a king of Atlantis. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And if you walk away with one thing today, it should be a new understanding of what S.H.I.E.L.D. actually is. On the surface, in the text, it's treated as armor. It's personal protection.
Right. It stops bullets.
It stops bullets. But as we dig into the subtext and the specific engineering protocols mentioned in the book, we see it's actually a catalyst. It's designed to expose what the author calls the low-frequency virus.
And we should define that immediately, because virus implies a biological contagion, like the flu. But that's not what this is at all.
No, not even close. In this context, the low-frequency virus is a representation of the human ego's baseline setting. Fear, greed, hoarding, the need for dominance.
So our worst impulses.
Our worst impulses. The text argues that this virus is what causes civilizations to collapse. So S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't just stopping bullets, it's trying to stop that frequency. It's a mirror held up to the human condition.
So we have a technology that physically blocks harm, but metaphorically blocks hate. That is a heavy concept.
It is.
Let's ground this in the first major event of the book. We need to go to Beijing. The text calls this the inciting incident, and frankly, it plays out like a Tom Clancy novel.
It really does. So the setting is the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, and the context here is crucial. At this point in the narrative, S.H.I.E.L.D. technology exists, but it's incredibly controversial.
Okay.
It is banned for the general public in China. The Chinese government is extremely wary of it.
Yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D. and his team are there trying to negotiate, but the tension is just, you can feel it on the page.
Palpable.
And then the worst case scenario happens, a bomb goes off. And we aren't talking about a small, localized device.
Yeah.
The source material spends a lot of time describing the sheer physics of this explosion.
It does. It describes a white-hot flame erupting with ravenous fury. We're talking about a blast wave strong enough to shatter structural concrete. Diana McKnight, who's a director at the embassy, is standing right in the kill zone.
Right in the worst possible spot.
The worst possible spot, and the text notes she is thrown 50 feet through the air.
Let's just pause on that physics for a second. 50 feet. The G-force involved in accelerating a human body that distance instantly. That alone is usually lethal.
Not to mention the overpressure rupturing internal organs, or the shrapnel.
Precisely.
Hmm?
By all conventional medical understanding, Diana McKnight is a casualty. The text even mentions that the fire sprinklers in the ceiling melted.
Wow.
That gives you an indication of the ambient temperature likely exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit in that initial flash.
But she stands up.
She stands up. She's wearing a S.H.I.E.L.D. prototype.
Yeah.
The text describes this moment of just pure cognitive dissonance, where she is dusting herself off, checking for severed limbs or third-degree burns, and finding nothing.
Waxing.
Her clothes might be singed, but her skin is pristine, not a scratch.
This is the miracle moment, but the narrative twist here is who set the bomb, because it wasn't a foreign enemy.
No, and this is where the political commentary gets really sharp. The investigation, which involves some pretty high-tech forensics described in the book, reveals it was a radical conservative faction within the Chinese apparatus itself.
Inside the house.
Inside the house, a woman named Su Ling, who was on the staff, actually betrayed Diana, and the motivation was pure fear. They believed S.H.I.E.L.D. was an agent of chaos, an alien influence that would destabilize Chinese society. They wanted to blow up the embassy to prove that S.H.I.E.L.D. brings death and destruction.
Talk about a backfire. I mean, that is the Streisand effect on steroids. They wanted to bury the tech, but by trying to blow it up, they provided the ultimate stress test.
The ultimate proof of concept, exactly. If the bomb had killed everyone, the faction's narrative would have worked perfectly. See? S.H.I.E.L.D. attracts violence.
This foreign tech is dangerous.
It brings chaos. But because Diana and a few others like Jenny and Chang survived a completely lethal event without a scratch, the narrative flipped instantly. In a single moment,
The message became,
S.H.I.E.L.D. makes you invincible.
and you can't put that genie back in the bottle? The text mentions that the public reaction isn't just curiosity, it's a demand. People are flooding the streets of Beijing.
It creates this fascinating dilemma for the Chinese Communist Party. Usually you quell protests with force or censorship. But these people aren't protesting against the government's ideology.
You're protesting for something.
They're protesting for their own safety. They see a device that can save them from a bomb. How do you tell a mother she can't have the thing that stops her child from being hurt in an accident or an attack?
You can't, not without looking like a monster. And this leads us directly to the negotiation table. S.H.I.E.L.D. versus the Secretary General, who is, for all intents and purposes, the President of China.
And the description of this meeting is fascinating because it's so heavily focused on the psychology of power.
Right. It's a masterclass in diplomatic maneuvering. They are in this stately room mahogany tables, heavy drapes, and the Chinese delegation uses the empty chair tactic.
Can you explain that?
They seat the UN team at an angle, leaving the chair directly opposite the president empty. It's such a subtle aggression.
It forces Ray to turn his head to look off-center.
It disrupts the eye line. It's a nonverbal way of saying, you are not my equal, I will not face you directly.
Correct. And the president opens with that same aggression, verbally. He points to the protest outside and accuses Ray of inciting insurrection. His argument is essentially, you brought this chaos to my doorstep.
Ray's counterargument here is really important for you to understand because it explains the technical limitations of S.H.I.E.L.D. He doesn't just say S.H.I.E.L.D. is good, he explains the do no harm protocol.
This is the safety valve of the technology. It's what makes it different from, say, a weapon. Ray explains that S.H.I.E.L.D. is strictly defensive.
So what does that mean in practice?
It means if a user tries to punch someone or fire a gun or even, plant a bomb while wearing S.H.I.E.L.D., the field deactivates instantly.
It shuts itself off.
It physically cannot support an act of aggression. The energy field just collapses.
Which completely dismantles the president's argument that the protesters are a threat.
Exactly. It presents a perfect logical loop. If the protesters are wearing S.H.I.E.L.D., they can't be violent. If they are violent, they can't be wearing S.H.I.E.L.D.
It forces the president into a logical corner. He has no rebuttal to that.
But Ray goes further. He doesn't just rest on the defensive. He brings up a case study. Iran.
This was a surprising inclusion in the text for me. Iran is presented as the success story.
Yes. In this timeline, the narrative explains that Iran fully adopted S.H.I.E.L.D. early on. Ray describes a complete societal transformation. Open borders, the voluntary dismantling of their entire nuclear program, a booming, thriving economy.
And what's the logic behind that? How does personal armor lead to dismantling nuclear weapons?
It's based on the removal of existential fear. Ray argues, why do nations militarize? Why do they lock down borders?
Fear of invasion, fear of subversion, fear of the other.
Exactly. Ray argues that if every citizen is invulnerable, the nation itself becomes invulnerable. You don't need a nuclear deterrent if your population can survive a blast. You don't need a massive standing army to defend borders if no one can actually be physically hurt. He's selling the end of defense spending.
That's a utopian pitch, but the president is a realist. I imagine he's looking at Ray like he's selling snake oil.
Completely. He doesn't buy it for a second. And this is where the team takes a massive risk. Elias, one of Ray's aides, basically breaks protocol and calls the president out. Try it on.
Just like that. A direct challenge.
A direct challenge. It's a huge breach of etiquette, but it's the only move they have left. And the president agrees, likely expecting nothing to happen, or perhaps expecting to prove them wrong.
But when he puts the device on, the genre of the story just shifts again.
It does. We leave the political thriller and we enter, I don't know, a medical drama.
The reaction is visceral. The book says he doesn't feel safe. He says he feels a loving embrace.
That phrasing is so key. It suggests the technology has a sentient or emotional component. It's not just a force field, but then the physical effects kick in. The S.H.I.E.L.D. interface, in his mind, asks him, do you want healing?
And this reveals the president's secret. He's dying.
Stage 4 prostate cancer. He's been in constant chronic pain, hiding it from the Politburo, hiding it from the world. It's a state secret. And S.H.I.E.L.D. detects the malignancy.
And removes it.
Eradicates it. The text describes a warmth spreading through his body and the pain he's lived with for years just vanishing instantly.
That's incredible. But it also does something cosmetic, right? The acne scars.
Yes. And I honestly think this detail is almost more important than the cancer.
Why is that?
Because the cancer was a secret state matter. It was about power and mortality. The scars were a personal insecurity. The book mentions he had these deep pockmarks on his face from his teenage years. They represented his vanity, his self-image, a flaw he saw in the mirror every single day.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. smooths them out.
It just removes them. And when he's given a mirror and sees his own reflection, he laughs. He touches his face. It totally humanizes him. It strips away the president persona and leaves just a man who feels good about himself for the first time in decades.
And that personal relief, that moment of vanity being satisfied, dictates global policy.
It's the book's central thesis on politics right there.
Yeah.
He lifts the ban, not because of the economic arguments or the safety data from the embassy bombing, but because he feels better.
The state is just a collection of individuals.
Right.
If the leader is in pain, physical or emotional, the state will act out that pain if the leader is healed.
The state policy shifts toward peace and openness. Personal wellness drives political peace.
So Ray wins Beijing. The world starts opening up to S.H.I.E.L.D. But as soon as he gets home, he gets a box that creates a whole new problem.
A much bigger problem in some ways.
The replicator.
The end of scarcity in a plain cardboard box.
It's described as looking kind of like a futuristic microwave, but it's essentially a matter-energy converter. Ray and his wife Layla start experimenting with it.
And they don't start with gold bars or diamonds. The book makes a point of this. They start with the mundane. Ray asks for a black coffee.
And it just appears.
A steaming cup. Materializes inside the machine. And importantly, the cup is created too, and the text notes that it's fully biodegradable.
So it solves the waste crisis and the hunger crisis in one go.
In theory, yes. They keep testing it. Chocolate cake? a pepperoni pizza for their son.
Hmm.
And then Layla really pushes it. She asks for a very specific, gluten-free Asian tofu salad,
A complicated
a
order.
very complicated order, and the machine produces it perfectly, instantly. This is when Ray realizes the true scope of what he's looking at.
And he asks the question any of us would ask. Why isn't this in every Walmart? Why isn't this everywhere?
Right. He calls his contact at the UN, a man named Alejandro, and Alejandro gives him a very dark, very sober answer. He lays out the economic dilemma.
This is a concept that economists have theorized about for years, right? The post-scarcity problem.
It is. If you introduce a machine that creates anything for free, you destroy the value of everything.
Walk us through that collapse. Why would it be so catastrophic?
Okay, think about the supply chain. For that simple piece of chocolate cake, you need cocoa farmers in Ghana, you need sugar refineries in Brazil, you need shipping companies with huge container vessels.
Then you need packaging plants, trucking logistics, grocery store employees to stock the shelves, checkout clerks.
Exactly. That is millions and millions of jobs and literally trillions of dollars in global infrastructure. And the replicator bypasses all of it. Push a button, get a cake.
The entire system becomes obsolete.
Instantly. If you release that technology to the public overnight, the stock market doesn't just crash, it hits zero. Currencies collapse because money is just a representation of value exchange. If there is no exchange needed, money is worthless paper. Alejandro explains that the world, our psychology, just isn't ready. The entire system is built on a foundation of scarcity.
So they have to throttle the rollout. They can't just release it.
They can't. The plan is to use it strategically. It's for famine relief in Africa first. It's for disaster zones after a hurricane. It's a humanitarian tool, not a consumer appliance.
They're trying to ease society into it.
But Ray gets a message that implies this economic collapse is inevitable anyway. He meditates, and he contacts the Galactic Federation Council, the GFC.
And the GFC is the extraterrestrial body that's kind of overseeing this whole transition for Earth.
Right. They're the ones who provided the S.H.I.E.L.D. and replicator technology. And their message to Ray is stark. They compare Earth, or Gaia as they call her, to a dirty mirror that needs to be wiped clean.
They talk about the damage we've done to the planet's crust, nuclear testing, fracking, chemical dumping.
Yes. They view our current economic model, this whole system of monetization, as part of the low-frequency virus. They see it as a system built on competition and greed and hoarding.
And their warning is, what? That the system is going to collapse whether we want it to or not.
That's the implication. That Gaia is undergoing a rebirth, a physical and energetic shift, and the old way of life, specifically monetization and competition, will be wiped clean during that process. The replicator isn't just a gadget. It's training wheels for a post-money civilization.
Which is a terrifying concept for us because we equate money with survival. If I don't have money, I starve. The replicator says, you won't starve, but your bank account is meaningless.
It requires a complete rewiring of human motivation. It's a fundamental question. If you don't work for money, why do you work?
You work to serve, to create, to help others.
That is the shift the GFC is pushing for. It's a move from a service-to-self model to a service-to-others model.
And to show Ray what that actually looks like in practice, they don't just tell him about it, they take him there.
The cosmic field trip.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Ray's son, Michael's birthday, and Ray gets clearance to give him the ultimate gift, a family ticket to the Galactic Federation mothership.
The description of the pickup is so wonderfully mundane, and yet so sci-fi. They're all just standing in their backyard in Virginia holding hands, a ship hovers down, a green light envelops them, and woof, they're gone. Teleportation.
And their first stop isn't the mothership, it's a planet called Maya, in the Pleiades constellation. The text calls it a sister planet to Earth.
And the description is just idyllic, a radiant blue planet. Once they land, they see these emerald green landscapes and amethyst-colored mountains, futuristic cities that seem to be grown, not built.
But the beauty isn't the main point. The point is the history of this place.
Correct. Micron, the leader of Maya who greets them, is very clear about this. He says Maya wasn't always a paradise. They had their own dark ages, they had devastating wars, they were infected with the same low-frequency virus.
So they nearly wiped themselves out, just like we're in danger of doing.
Exactly. Maya is a proof of concept. It's Earth's potential future, a vision of what we could become if we navigate this transition successfully.
And the society they observe, it answers that question we just asked. Why work if there is no money?
It does. On Maya, the currency is, for lack of a better word, kindness.
How does that work practically? I mean, how do you buy groceries with kindness?
Well, there were no groceries to buy because of the replicators. But it's more of a reputation economy, or as the text calls it, a vibrational economy. You gain status and respect by what you contribute, not by what you hoard.
So it's about your service to the community.
Your service, your creativity, your wisdom. And the leaders, this is the really interesting part. They aren't elected through campaigns or fundraising or political maneuvering. They are chosen based on frequency.
Vibrational leadership. What does that mean?
The idea is that the community, being more psychically and emotionally attuned, can literally sense who has the highest capacity for compassion, logic, and service. Those individuals naturally rise to positions where they can best organize and help society function. It's a meritocracy of the spirit.
It sounds lovely, but it also sounds, well, impossible for us right now. We're so far from that.
We are. But then Micron drops a piece of information that changes the stakes for Earth. He says Maya and Gaia are entangled.
As in quantum entanglement.
Precisely. He explains that because Maya has healed and reached this high-frequency state, and because they are, on some level, genetically or spiritually linked to the people of Earth, they can act as a stabilizer for us.
Like a cosmic big brother.
Or think of it like a blood transfusion, a healthy person giving blood to a sick person. Maya is lending its high-frequency stability to Earth to help prevent us from completely blowing ourselves up during this chaotic transition.
So we have training wheels, which is the replicator, and we have a spotter, which is Maya. We're being guided through this.
We're not alone in this process. That's the core message. But then Ray discovers that his role in all of this isn't random. He's not just some lucky diplomat who got picked for the job.
Right. This is when they leave Maya and finally go to the mothership at Saturn.
And he meets a being named Torian, a very heavy figure in the lore of these books.
And Torian reveals that in a past life, he was known as Apollo.
The Greek god Apollo. And then he looks at Ray and tells him, "You are my brother, you are Atlas."
Atlas, the Titan, the king of Atlantis.
It completely recontextualizes the entire story up to this point. Ray isn't discovering S.H.I.E.L.D. for the first time. He's remembering it. He's rediscovering his own invention.
He invented it.
He and Apollo, or Torian, did. Torian explains that thousands of years ago, in what they called the City of Mentalities, which is their name for Atlantis, he and Atlas were the scientists who discovered this blue life force energy.
And Torian has the receipts, so to speak. He fires up what I'm calling S.H.I.E.L.D. TV.
That's a good name for it. He uses the S.H.I.E.L.D. technology to project Ray's own repressed memories onto a large screen so the whole family can literally watch his past life like a movie.
This flashback is absolutely critical because it shows us exactly why our civilization is currently in this mess. It explains the origin of the problem.
It does. Atlantis, or the City of Mentalities, was unbelievably high-tech. They had protective domes, invisibility cloaking for the whole city, everyone was telepathic, they used crystal technology for power.
A total utopia, but...
They had the low-frequency virus creeping in at the edges of their society.
Yeah.
The same virus of fear and greed.
And this is what leads to the fundamental conflict between the two brothers, Atlas and Apollo.
Yes, Atlas, who is Ray's past self, is ambitious. He's idealistic. He sees this blue light energy, this early version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he wants to save the world with it immediately. He wants to take it outside the dome to the, quote, primitives.
And Apollo, Torian's past self, is the cautious one.
He's the pragmatist. He warns Atlas, no, they aren't ready. The technology isn't tested enough. And more importantly, the virus is too strong and too cunning. They will corrupt it.
But Atlas is arrogant. He's suffering from a bit of a savior complex. He thinks the tech alone will solve the problem.
He does. So he leads an expedition against Apollo's advice. They travel to what is now modern-day Spain to meet a local ruler named King Argon. And this first contact meeting goes horribly, horribly wrong.
It's the classic tragedy of technology without wisdom.
It really is. Atlas tries to impress King Argon. He shows him the Chalice of Abundance, which is basically a prototype replicator that can refill any cup with wine.
And Argon's reaction isn't, wow, this could end thirst.
No. His reaction is, great, free booze from my army. He doesn't see a post-scarcity miracle. He sees a logistical advantage.
And when Atlas shows him the early S.H.I.E.L.D. prototype, what does he see then?
He sees a weapon of war. His first thought is, if my soldiers can't be hurt, I can conquer the world. It's the exact opposite of what Atlas intended.
So Atlas's peaceful intention is immediately twisted into a tool for conquest.
Yes. And Atlas, desperate to win him over, eventually uses the blue light to heal Argon's chronic back pain. That's what finally convinces the king to accept the technology. But the damage is done. Argon accepts the tech for purely selfish reasons. He accepts it to feed his ego, which is exactly what the virus feeds on.
And the infection spreads from there. It doesn't just stay with Argon.
No. Two of Atlas's own associates, Myra and Kulin spend years traveling the outside world trying to spread the blue light. They become weary, tired, and resentful.
And the virus finds a way in. This is the part of the book that really chilled me. The virus isn't a zombie bite. It's not a physical thing. It's a voice in their heads.
It whispers to them. The text describes it perfectly. It tells them, "You work so hard. You deserve more than this. Look at those people. They have gold and fine silks. Why don't you have that? You're the one with the real power." It exploits their fatigue and their sense of injustice.
And they go back to Atlantis and they bring it with them.
They do. They pass all the physical scanners at the city gates because there's nothing physically wrong with them. They bring the mind virus inside the dome.
And this all culminates in a scene at the marketplace.
The marketplace chaos. This scene is so important. In the city of mentalities, everything was free. It was a true post-scarcity society. You took what you needed for the day, no questions asked.
A perfect system in theory.
But Myra and Kulin walk into this marketplace, infected by the virus, and suddenly, taking what they need isn't enough. Myra starts grabbing armfuls of fruit, far more than she could ever eat. She's just hoarding it. Kulin sees some gold jewelry and is overcome with a feeling of covetousness. I must have that.
It's the birth of greed, the idea of personal ownership beyond need.
And because Atlanteans were telepathic, that sudden, powerful spike of greed and hoarding from Myra and Kulin acted like a psychic scream. It shocked the peaceful people around them.
It jumped from mind to mind.
Like a contagion. Suddenly, other people are thinking, wait, if she's taking all the fruit, there won't be any for me. I should take some too. He wants that gold. No, that's mine.
And the whole system of trust just collapses in minutes.
The text describes it as a full-blown riot breaking out in this once perfect marketplace. The peacekeepers, who were more like empaths than police, tried to intervene, but the mob literally attacked the peacekeepers with their minds, with pure psychic rage, and killed them. The city fell from the inside out.
Destroyed by an idea.
And that is the lesson Atlas had to learn, the mistake he had to live with, and the reason why Ray had to forget who he was for thousands of years. S.H.I.E.L.D. failed in Atlantis because the people weren't willing to be peaceful. They used the protection it offered to enable their own greed and fear.
Which brings us full circle to the present day in the book. Why is it working now? Why did the Chinese president get healed when King Argon just got more warlike? What's different?
Two things are different: the technology and the person. The new version of S.H.I.E.L.D. has the do no harm protocol built in. The Atlantean version didn't. It was just raw power.
So you can't use the modern shield to power a war machine.
You can't. And second, the new S.H.I.E.L.D. has that sentient interface. It requires a relationship. You have to ask for healing. You have to willingly accept the loving embrace, as the president called it. It forces a moment of humility, a moment of surrender that the Atlantean version never required.
So the technology has evolved, but humanity has to evolve to match it. That's the challenge.
Exactly. The new era isn't about getting free stuff from a replicator. It's about reaching a state of mind where you don't want to hoard the free stuff. It's about developing an inner immunity to the low-frequency virus.
That's the sacred balance that the title of the book refers to then. Technology plus spirituality. You can't have one without the other, or you get Atlantis all over again.
Or you get a global economic collapse from the replicator, but without a kindness economy ready to replace it. You just get chaos.
It's a sobering thought, but it's also hopeful in a way. The message is that we have the tools, we just need to develop the mindset to use them correctly.
Willingness. That is the one word that sums it all up. Are we willing to change?
Well, that is a lot to process. From the ashes of the Beijing embassy to the fall of Atlantis, the message seems to be consistent. Check your own frequency.
Indeed. It all comes down to the individual choice.
That's it for this deep dive into The Gift, Book 3. We'll see you next time.